we have got an Exchange server here. We have got an Exchange server, and you can see this Exchange server has got a certificate error, right? Because this certificate is not a proper certificate. This is a standard certificate. We call it as a start TLS certificate. This comes with the Exchange server, and you can see it is not being completed. There is no proper root authority. This itself becomes the root because it's using the system side certificate, and we call it as a standard certificate. So what we are going to do, we are going to create a new certificate and then attach that new certificate to this Exchange server to avoid this error message. So we can create the certificates in two different ways, or you can configure the certificates in two different options. One is you can configure it's using your own self-sign. We call it as a self-signed certificate. That's when you sign the certificate and tell them, yes, your certificate is sort of a valid certificate. There's another option that you can go and ask a certificate authority. Certificate authority is the highest level of sort of the provider who checks the information about an organization and come back and tell you, yes, you can trust this organization based on the information we gathered. This company is sort of a trustable organization. So that's called a certificate authority. So there are many certificate authorities in the world, right? Let's call it as like root CAs, right? One of them are, say, for example, Google is one of them. VeriSign is one of them. So these are sort of like AWS is one of them. These are the certificate authorities, right? So you can call or you can communicate with the certificate authority and you can provide all your identity to them. So they will maintain a database. At the same time, they will provide you a certificate. This certificate is going to have two information. One is called private key and the other one is called public key. There's a communication, there's two keys involved in digital certificate, a private key and a public key communication. So the device who requests this digital certificate is always going to have, they're going to receive and keep their private certificate. Keep in mind the private certificates or private keys, not the certificate, private keys cannot be shared. It needs to be kept in your system and it shouldn't be exposed to anyone in the network, right? Or anyone in the network should not see your private certificate, right? The reason private certificate is your personal certificate, sort of, right? If your personal certificate is exposed, then you cannot provide any more the security services to the communication, right? So it's a very confidential and it should not be shared amongst to anyone. But the public key can be shared with anyone, right? You can share the public key with anyone. The reason why we share the public key is to make sure that you can communicate with those people. Public key is there to make sure your communication is secure, right? So I've just got some way or sort of a documentation here, how to configure the certificates, right? Just put together, I believe I did this a couple of years before. Let me see the documentation. We don't need to refer this documentation anyway. I'm just going to show you where I have the document in case if you guys need to just go refer these documents, you can refer later on, right? So I'm just going to have a look. Not here. Change server certificate. So I've got a document here. So how to configure and install certificate. So you can see here, just documented how we create a certificate. So what we can do, let's go and create our own certificate now, right? We will create our own certificate and we attach this own certificate to our system so that we can confirm, we can avoid those certificate errors. So to do that, of course, first thing I need to confirm my Exchange server is working. So let's go and confirm my Exchange server's communication, right? So to do that, let's see, this is my Exchange, sorry, here we go. This is my Exchange server, right? Let me see whether I can reach out my domain controller, ping to my domain called exchange.com.au. ping.com.au. Oh, it goes to public IP address. Looks like it's connecting to somewhere public. So let's stop connecting to public and make sure we just communicate internally. Right. So change adapter settings, properties, TCP IP4. I can see it good. Let me disable and enable again to confirm, because this is my Exchange server needs to communicate with this server. Oh, sorry, it's not Exchange. I forgot. This is facetnet.com.au. That's the domain name I believe I used on this system. Let me see. Alt control enter. Other user. So facetnet dash administrator and the password. Yeah. So this is uh, who am I? I can see it's facetnet. So let's go and ping. I can see here it's facetnet in my Exchange server, right? So technically it's fine. Technically I'm connected to my facetnet domain controller. Let's go and ping to confirm that I can resolve my IP address. Yep, 20.10. That's exactly the IP address. And I know this is 20.10 as well. Yep, 20.10. And my exchange is, I believe, 20.50. Yeah, cool. So now I can really access my Exchange server. Let's see whether my Exchange service is working. So to do that, I'm going to launch my Exchange Admin Center. So if you go to Exchange server, there's an Exchange Administrative Center, and you can see this is what we are going to fix here. It says this site is not secure. The reason why it says it's not secure because there's no proper certificates. If you look there, there's no proper certificate. Right. See, there is a certificate security. The hostname in the website security certificate differs from the website that you are trying to access, right? So on the computer, we have got a standard certificate that doesn't really be used for this name as well. So that's the reason we have got the error message. I'm going to fix this one. So let's go to the page, log into my Exchange server as the administrator, right? Sign in. So I'm signed into my Exchange server. Right, what I do to create the certificate, we go to mail flow, servers here. And on the top here, we can see there's an option called certificates. This is where we create, this is from here, we create the digital certificate, right? This is where I'm going to ask, or I'm going to use to create, this link is what I'm going to use to create the digital certificates. So we click on the digital certificate, right? And then we click the plus sign here. So there's a small plus sign here. So let's go click this plus sign. When you click this plus sign, it comes up with two options, right? This wizard will create a new certificate or a certificate request file. So the certificate request file is something that we create a request file and then send it to the certificate provider. Say when I explain the root certificate authorities, which is CA, certificate authorities. So remember, certificate authority has to provide a certificate to you based on your request. But how do you send your request to that authority? Is called through a certificate request file, right? We call it as a CSR file, right? So that certificate request file will have all the information about your system. So you're going to put your name, address, contact number, telephone contact number, email address, your business registration number, right? Yeah, domain controllers, and then it's going to put some additional information collected within the system and prepare a file, and that file will be sent to the certificate authority to provide you or to create you a certificate, right? But in that case, that's here, all right? So we can create that, but I'm not going to do it right now. That I'm going to create a self-signed certificate. See, there's two options, right? Create a request for certificate from certificate authority, or you can create it as a self-signed certificate. In my case, I'm going to start from self-signed certificate. You can either create a self-signed certificate or request certificate from certificate authority, right? So we'll start initially from certificate as a self-signed certificate. Once we completed the self-signed certificate and once learned the self-signed certificate concept, we'll go and create the certificate authority. You don't need to always go and request the certificate authority like as an external certificate authority. You can configure your own domain controller or your exchange server as a certificate authority, right? So that's sort of a local certificate authority, right? We have a public certificate authority, which is like, as I said, Google, Amazon, and VeriSign. But at the same time, you can create your own certificate authority too, right? Keep in mind there's a difference. So if you have your public authority, certificate authority, and having a private certificate authority is quite different in the levels of trust. Something like you go and tell them that this request is signed by the certificate authority. So then they ask, who is your certificate authority? I'm the certificate authority. That's mean like you are signing yourself, you are the right person, you are the good person, you're doing things right. People are not going to trust that. So there's always a problem. There's always sort of a lack in having your own certificate authority, but still you can do it, right? But in real world, if you wanted to communicate with some external parties, you need to always make sure you create a certificate from a public certificate authority, right? We'll see. I'll walk through a couple of the public certificate authorities and I'll show you how to create the certificate request from there. All right, but this time we will go with the self-signed certificate. Let's click next. Now it's going to ask you to provide some friendly name, right? That means you're going to create a certificate request, right? And when you create a certificate request, it's going to ask you to provide a friendly name. You can provide any friendly name here, right? I can see the friendly name is display name for the certificate. So you can say FacetNet, right? Net self-signed certificate. I just provide a name. Next. Now it's asking, right? In this one, it's asking who's your email exchange server, right? Who's going to use this one to send and receive emails, right? Specify the server where you want to install the certificate. Remember, your certificate needs to be installed on the exchange server. So he's asking, where do you want to install it? But the other way, it's asking who is your exchange server, right? So here we have again an option to add. Click on the plus sign. So it says typically the certificate request is stored on the server where you want to install the certificate. You can store the certificate request on any client access server or mailbox server or any exchange organization. So these are the different roles that you can install an exchange server, right? But here we have installed all the mailbox role and every other roles, right? Client access and exchange organization role in one system. So we're going to just use the same mail exchange server. So click on the add button. It tells you who is your exchange server. You know, it's exchange is my exchange server. You can confirm that if you go to this computer and if you see the computer name, it says exchange. So yep, I'm perfectly all right. So it's exchange is my one. Click add. All right, move to the next one. All right, now it's asking about the domain names that you are going to include it in your certificate. Remember, the digital certificate is going to check the URL, right? It's going to just check the URL on the top here. Whatever the URL you use here, that URL must be within your certificate called, there's an option, there's a field in certificate called subject alternative name. If that URL is in the subject alternative name, then you will not get the certificate warning. If the URL that you are trying to access is not in that list, then you are going to get the warning. So that's why it's asking. See, specify the domains or host names that you want to include in the certificate. Multiple values indicate a subject alternative name certificate, right? So you can have multiple names as in the subject alternative. So you can have different names. See, it's already got a exchange.facetnet, right? Different names you can see already here, right? If you wish, if you want to edit something, if you don't want to do it, you can change it, right? Outlook web app, right? When access from internet, when access from intranet. If somebody is accessing from internet, you can provide a name, say for example, mail dot facet .com.au. You can tell them this is how they're going to access it, right? So different services, say active sync is there, auto discovery is there, IMAP pop is there, Outlook Anywhere. If they're using Outlook Anywhere, you can provide a name, say exchange dot xchng dot net.com.au. You can provide mail dot exchange sorry mail dot net.com.au. You can provide those names. So these are all the subject alternative names we have given. If you don't want to use anything, you can just remove them and you can just move on to the next step. So click next. Right. So you can see all the names that I've given is been added to my default plus additional option. So here is the all the information we have got in my system. So these are the names I'm going to use in my certificate. So my certificate is going to support if anyone browse mail.facetnet.com.au will not give you a warning. Exchange Faceit, it will not give you a warning. Auto discovery will not. Faceit not, it will not. But still localhost is not there. So I need to add localhost. Let me add localhost as well, right? So if I add the localhost, I will not get any error message for browsing localhost as well, right? So you can always change, right? You can always change, or if you want, you can add, right? So rather adding a domain, what I'm going to do is see here based on the selection, you can add the domain. I'm just going to go back one step, right? Outlook Anywhere. Let me put localhost as well. Right. So now I can see the localhost name is there, right? Right. Next, it's just creating the certificate. See, it's just creating the certificate. Certificate request is created now, right? So saving complete successfully. You have completed the operation. So now the certificate request or the request to create the certificate is completed. Click close. Now you can see the certificate that I just created is here, right? We have the certificate. We can edit because this certificate is now created, but we haven't assigned this certificate to any of the services, right? If you don't assign the certificate to any of the services, we are not going to then use it because it's using the other certificate that we have already got it. So you can click here, right? So, or you can click on the certificate and it goes in there, right? You can see what you have created, just a certificate created for exchange, right? And the alternative names, public key is used, right? It has a private key. And if you go down under services, we can see it's supposed to IPOP, IMAP. You can, even if you want, you can apply it to SMTP, which is a simple mail transport protocol. So I'm going to use it for mail services. Yes. Existing SMTP certificate, current certificate overwriting. Yep. Right. So now we have assigned the certificate to my SMTP services. You can confirm it by going to a service called IIS. So INET MGR. If you go to the IINet, which is your web services, right? If you go under IINet, right? And in the sites, right? Then you see default certificate site, right? Then you will see the SSL certificate settings. Sorry, not that one. If you go down here, binding, right? So we can see, right? For HTTPS, it's using certificate here, HTTPS, right? You can see I can edit these certificates, right? I can edit and I can tell them, right? If you wanted to, you can specify or you can add a new. So let me add the new rather just editing one. For all the assigned IP addresses running on port number 443, right? You can provide a host names called mail.facetnet.com.au, right? And you can tell the certificate that they have to use is the one that I just created, right? So if someone goes to this URL in HTTPS, use this certificate, right? Assigned, right? You can see here, it's already assigned for all the IPs, right? So you can restart just to make sure that the certificate services are working, right? Okay. Right. So now, right, let's go to the Exchange again, right? So access the web services. Let's access localhost and go to eCPU Exchange Control Panel, and you can see it's a certificate error. The reason why we have the certificate error, because we have assigned the certificate, but it is not inside or not installed in the system. Remember, this is you create the certificate, it's not been installed, it's just still sitting in the Exchange server. So what we have to do is we have to get this digital certificate and we have to install it, right? So here, this is Exchange. I'm going to use a different browser, right? Let me use a different browser so that I can easily pick the certificate, right? So Chrome, no Chrome. Let me quickly install Google Chrome here. Let's go Google Chrome, download Google Chrome. So the reason is because Google Chrome, or anyway, this is going to easily show you the certificate error message, and I can download the certificate easily, right? So if you go click continue, there's an error message here. See, click this view certificate. You can see it's not trusted. It's provided by mail.facetnet, but it's not trusted. The reason, if you see that, there's no root certificate. See, it says the root certificate is not trusted because it is not in the trusted root certificate authority store. Because the certificate I created, but I haven't put into the trusted root certificate store. Where's this really this trusted root certificate authority store is where do we have this one? So we can find this if you go to MMC, Microsoft Management Control console.mmc. Right. So if you go to Microsoft Management Console, open up, oops, come on, hit enter, mmc dot, come on, administrator, is it running? RAM I have given to this one, maybe that could be a reason. Oh, it's 8 GB, so it's got enough RAM. It should pop up, it should open up, MMC. I just wanted to show you the location of, oh, that's failover cluster, no, mmc dot mmc dot Microsoft run command. Okay. Once it's loaded, maybe once maybe after reboot or something, it might work. You can get it from here, mmc. Yeah. So let's wait for that. But meantime, I'll tell you first how to install it, and then we will move on, right? So if you go here in the details, you can see the details, subject alternative names that we just created before. See here, these are the names we have created. So your certificate is going to trust all these names, right? So you are going to get error message. So to install, we can see here, there's an option called copy to file. So click that, next. So you can you can create it as a base 64 and then browse and save this as a certificate, self-sign, save that. So now the certificate is saved on your desktop, right? We just saved that digital certificate. You can see this is the newly created digital certificate. We saved this digital certificate on the local computer desktop. Let's double click, install the certificate. So you install to the local user, or you can local computer, or you can install to specific users. But if you install to specific users, every time if you log in as a different user, then you have to make sure that the certificate is installed to that specific user. So to simplify that, I can install to local machine. Click next. Where do you want to place this certificate? Right. So place the certificate. If you click here, we will see those information. See, trusted root certificate authority store, right? Personal, right? Intermediate. So we're going to put into these three areas: personal, trusted, and intermediate. So let's start from trusted first. Next. Done. Install. Local machine. personal, done. Intermediate, right. So now the certificate is being installed. Let's open up one more time. Now you could see the error message is gone. Why it's gone? It's because the certificate is now installed and it's in my store. It's in my certificate store. I just installed to the root certificate already. Of course, I wanted to show you exactly where it is. mmc.mmc. Some reason mmc is not working. Maybe what I can do is I can try to access the mmc from here. Let me do that. Insert. So this is my domain controller. I'm going to go to mmc. There you go, it's opening. Maybe let's do the same thing here. mmc.exe. Doesn't work. So let's go to the open location. Yeah, it's working. So if you do add new snap in, there's an option called certificate. Right click on certificates, add that certificate of your local computer. Next, local computer next. Click OK. You can now see all the certificates. See here, trusted root certificates. If you go in here, by default, Microsoft has got some of those root certificate, authority certificate installed with their operating system. That's mean, remember, Microsoft has already signed up or negotiated with the providers here. So you can see DigiCert is one of the provider, right? Global Sign. So these are the root certificates. They have signed up and installed their root certificate. So that means every time when you communicate, most of the time you can already existing root certificates will help you to communicate securely. So we have already got the certificate. The one that we installed, it's here. This is the one we installed now, right? So our certificate is here. Earlier, this was not there. Now it is there. So you can see it under the personal. There you go. Under intermediate, you can see. So I have got all my certificates, my certificate in all three places. Technically, I installed the certificate to fix my error. So let's go to the web browser, close it, close the browser, open it one more time, and use the keyword localhost. You can see magically the error is now gone. We don't see the errors now. And it says you have got the certificate. Right? Your certificate is trusted. If you click on the Google certificate, you can say, yep, I have got the digital certificate. It's all working well. Remember in the subject alternative name, what we have here, localhost, exchange, facetnet, mail, facet. So if I try and access these names, right, in my browser, right, say for example, mail, http colon mail.facetnet.com.au/OWA. Oops, mail facetnet. Sorry. The reason mail is not going to work, I don't think I have a CNAME in my DNS called mail. Right, let's see. There's nothing called mail. So I'll create a CNAME called mail and I'll point that to my email server. My email server is Exchange, right? And you can't send and receive emails to public because there is no MX record. So let me create an MX record too. So normally, most cases, MX record, the host name will be blank. You can just pick your email server. Again, my email server is Exchange. Okay, so I have mail, and also what's the other name I have for my certificate? I had two names. One was mail, the other one was uh, Exchange. I can see already Exchange. No, it's just a host name. There's no C name. So let me create Exchange. And point to Exchange server. Incompatible with the CNAME record. Why? Exchange. No, I picked the wrong one. Sorry. I should have just picked directly the Exchange. Maybe it could be because the names are Exchange. Yeah. So we don't need it because already the Exchange name is there. So we don't really need it, right? It's already there. So we don't need it, right? So we have Exchange all, right? Let's try and access these names, right? Mail dot https:// dot facet. You can see no error. Let's try Exchange OWA. Enter. No error. Fine. Let's create a new CNAME, and this time I'll put that's my mail, right? And I'm going to say people can access my email using my mail name as well, right? So you can see I created a new alias called my mail. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try and access using the same newly created my mail dot facetnet.com.au/owa mymailfacetnet.com.au. Hit enter. You see there's an error message now. Why we get this error message? It's because I don't have digital certificate, or in my digital certificate I don't have this URL. On my digital certificate, right, the URL, which is the subject alternative name, which I have, is this. There's no my mail. So you're going to get the error message because they cannot verify this URL because you haven't provided this URL as yours. So the certificate service cannot verify this URL is a trusted URL. So the question comes to us, how do I then add it? Is there a way that I can edit here? So if I can add a name here next to this, then things are fixed. I don't need to worry. Unfortunately, you cannot do that. You cannot modify a digital certificate. There's no way that you can modify a digital certificate. If you want to add a new URL, right, you have multiple options in digital certificate. You can purchase a digital certificate with supporting to subdomains, any subdomain. It's going to be quite expensive, but you can do *facetnet.com.au, which means the URL, it doesn't matter whether you use my mail, Homesclan mail, Facebook mail, whatever the name, you keep it. It doesn't matter, it will work, right? Or you have to recreate the digital certificate again and replace your existing digital certificate with this new digital certificate. So that's the only way I can avoid having this error message. Let's meantime go to google.com and see. We haven't got the error message for Google. See, if you look at the certificate here, this is issued by Google. The only time I'm going to use the certificate FacetNet certificate is when I go to those specific URLs that I've seen here, or I've developed or I've attached to the subject alternative name. Rest of them will use the default certificates. We have got the trusted default certificate here. They're going to pick one of these trusted certificate and they will communicate. Keep in mind, now web browsers, it doesn't matter about what web browser, except Microsoft Explorer. Any web browser if you type HTTP, that will automatically redirect to HTTPS, because every services now runs through HTTPS secure communication. Because remember, HTTP is a plain text communication. It is very easy that people can capture the packets in HTTP